Okay. Are you ready? How's everybody doing? Thumbs up? One thumb up, one thumb down? Thumbs, double thumbs? And they're both the same size. Now there's well, we're still working with some of the technical part of this presentation. I'm hoping that you're all not thoroughly exhausted yet. Everybody good? Where are the kids in my group? Right here. Can you tell me a hero? Who's your hero? Your mom? Oh. And who's one of your heroes? You can't say your mom this time. She already said mom. So give me one of your heroes. Do you have a superhero or a...
My cousin.
Your cousin. And why?
Because she helps me a lot when I'm getting beat up by my other cousin.
Okay, so she helps you and keeps people from beating up on you, right? Good. All right, so this is for the adults, since we don't have a lot of kids. What are some things we look for in a hero? What attributes? Stimulating. Good answer. Leadership. Excellent answer. Stability. Anybody else? Courage. Did I hear courage? Thank you. Wonderful answer. When I think of a superhero who is got courage, who's got stability, who has leadership, I have found somebody who is now my mentor and the person that I think is my superhero, and he doesn't even live in my same town, he doesn't even live in my same state or my same country, doesn't even live in my same continent. It is Jim Costello, who's sitting over here, standing over here, trying to make the floppy disk work. And how did I discover that? I didn't see him in a comic book. I didn't know him from across the street. I had to discover him through a news service that we call the internet. I actually got an email starting with a woman who's not even here. Her name was Susan Sharon Penny Fisher. They kind of linked me to Jim Caruso. Jim Costello. I get this all the time. I'm doing this bad here.
My uncle would be so proud.
But the two men here, and I'm going to get this right, Jim Costello and Bud Caruso, have been very instrumental as we look at doing this together. Jim Costello and his wife Margaret are here to do part of the program with us. This took terrific effort on their part right now. If there is a hero who showed and demonstrated courage this last year because of his fight and his battle with Gorlin syndrome, it is Jim Costello. There are days when I hit that wall head on with this condition. And I have, this last year, been able to look at and say, I know somebody who has it a lot worse than I do, who's dealing with it better than I am, and who never shows the anger, the frustration that I show. He has been an excellent role model for me to say, how can I better cope with my condition? I don't know what I would do if I were missing my ear. I don't know what I would do if I knew that any day my sight would be gone. And I am so proud to introduce to you Jim Costello and his wife Margaret, who developed the Gorlin Syndrome Support Group in England. And Jim, we welcome you with whole heart and whole arms.
I wanted a hug.
Oh, I love hugs.
Oh.
I think it's an incompatibility. The versions, it's 95
Yeah.
on here and we've got 98.
No, we're
We'll,
dead.
we'll have to go
We did.
without it.
Well, I think we're doomed.
We do.
Yeah, I think
We'll
we
do
have
part
conflicting
2.
versions of PowerPoint.
Yes. And we can go without it.
Yeah?
I'll just dance.
Yes.
Oh, you're getting something up there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to go into.
Well, we can start
We
with,
can keep trying while
yes.
you guys are,
Yeah,
just
and it-
ignore the screen.
Well, let's go do a little bit first anyhow, before that. Firstly, can I say thank you to, I hope I get this right, the BCCNS group for their invitation to come here. The trustees, particularly for inviting us. To have this link finally started off is just tremendous.
All right, hang on a second. Let me see if I can turn this one off.
We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Invitation. The work that Christy, Bud, Sharon, Jenny, Bill, all of you, what you're doing is just tremendous. Initially, when we started off the group nearly 10 years ago, the first meeting like this that we had was attended by about 5 or 6 people. And we've grown to, well, the last meeting we had that Bud and Christy and Jenny and Sharon came to last year, we had well over 100 people, not just from the UK, but from Norway, Holland, and obviously America. It's just tremendous to see it grow to as well as it has done. It really fills me up inside. What I see it all doing now. But initially, when we started off, Christy mentioned the 2 ladies, Penny Fisher and Susie Sharon, helped us tremendously in those early days. And I know we can do the same for each other across the pond, as it were. What else was I going to say?
You were going to say about, forging.
Well, forging links, yeah. To forge a link with the way the email is just tremendous. How forward, how far forward we've come, and to put faces to some of the emails, it's just so nice to be here and share each other's experiences, which obviously helps us. The one thing we try to relate to is at the end of the day, whatever treatment or whatever symptom of the syndrome that you're having treated, although I'm no medical expert, I'm just a Gorliner, a mutant hero, whatever they call me.
Patient expert.
Patient expert, yeah. At the end of the day, it's your choice. All that we're doing through the help of our medical advisors, which again can change from one continent to the other, and we respect that, is that at the end of the day, it is your choice. Each of us, although we're all, as Christy said yesterday, well today, is that we're all one family. We all have individual mutations of the gene, the Gorlin gene as they call it. So in that respect, that dictates the severity and what parts of the syndrome that we have. But at the end of the day, again, with your medical advisors or with our medical advisors for our side of the pond, it's your choice. All that we do is pass the information on to you, and it's just amazing. In the 30 years that I've had surgery, for BCCs is how far we've come. It's just amazing, you know, people who were just recently diagnosed with the... I'm rabbiting on here, aren't I? Am I rabbiting
No,
on?
you're doing very
I
well.
did
I'll
okay.
let you carry
Oh,
on a
that's
bit
okay.
longer.
The choice that you have now from 30 years ago is just amazing. Either surgical or the PDT. You have a big choice, and obviously that is, again, is that's dictated into your mutation. When people first come to our group, again, this is what we advise, and unfortunately I don't think we'll be able to show it on the PowerPoint. We're trying, still trying, is that we always say it's imperative that the whole family is monitored. It's not just the patient, it's the whole family that is affected, whether they have inherited the gene or not. They're still affected one way or the other. But if we don't see this slide, we have like a graphic of a spider's web. Right in the centre of the spider's web is the geneticist, branching out to all the different consultants who liaise with one another and help one another on a two-way basis. If the consultant wants some information about the syndrome, the geneticist can tell them any problems that they may or may not encounter, or the latest technology, the latest drug, but also the consultant could contact them for their experiences. So it's a two-way thing. Without this liaison that we have in the UK, and I'm sure you have here, our group wouldn't be anything that it is. And it takes time to get that trust, to get that understanding. The isolation side, it's so nice. Similar to yourselves now, you have a contact list, we have a contact list in the UK. And to get rid of the isolation side, feeling, oh, I'm so alone. I mean, a couple of times I've had emails, one last year was just amazing. 2 months before our actual annual meeting, I had an email from a family in Holland who I hadn't heard from. It was a first time basis. So I sent them all the information. I thought, that's really good. And they said, yeah, we're coming to the meeting on the way from Holland. Oh, that's wonderful. 2 weeks later, I had another email from Holland, again from a family. They'd just been diagnosed with the syndrome. And I was astonished. They were not only in the same country, but they were only in the same town, round the corner from one another. They had no idea that they were there. And I've had the same in the States too, you know, particularly in this county. So to get rid of that isolation is a major hurdle, where you can, on a local basis, you can share experiences and pass those on. I hope with the help of your group that it will come over that, again, it's your choice, and you can bang on the consultant desk and say, hey, you know, there are other treatments. Sometimes years go by and you keep taking the same treatments all the time, and as I said, in 30 years, the range of treatments is just been astronomical. And keeping an eye on that and say, well, have we come to the crossroads again where we say, what do you think, we should try this now? You know, and with the medical expertise that you have here, I'm sure you'll grow and grow to a very, very successful unit and helping one another.
That's probably about it.
Is that about it?
Yeah.
I've got one thing, only person I'm going to thank is well, two people I'm going to thank is Margaret, my wife, who, how many years have we been together here?
Too long.
Too long. We've been married 27 years. We've been married 27 years, but prior to that we were, I suppose the word is courting, and Margaret knew me for the first operation, so she's seen me from start to as you see me now. And she's been a rock, particularly in getting me here with my son Richard, because my sight isn't at the best at the moment. So they've guided me in many ways on the trip here. But it's that support, it's that the importance of having that family unit and the whole family unit understanding the problems and talking to one another. You get that. I mean, I'm no, as Margaret will probably tell you, I'm not perfect in many ways. Again, I'll probably say this now because we may not show it. Some years ago, we lost a baby, 6 months old, who we knew there was something wrong, but we didn't discover till she died what it was. She had several fibromas on the heart, which some of you may or may not know is a rare, very rare part of the syndrome, something like 1%. That was a real shock to us all, as you can appreciate. Part one was I bottled it up. Hand on heart, I bottled it up. Mark was throwing the kitchen sink at me virtually and everything else. What you do, you were getting to that point. Till I went to a group, not a Gawley syndrome group, but I went to a cancer help group. And once I started talking about it, that was good, you know, to talk about your problems is a major hurdle. But also at the time, our 2 children were 4 or 5. How old were they?
2 and 3.
They were 2 and 3. And I think that they particularly pulled us through it. We knew we had to do something for them to carry on. And then particularly when we found that they were, I don't think we knew at that time that they had inherited but a couple of years after we found out that they had inherited the syndrome, which again for me personally was a real hurdle to get over. I could tolerate my position at that time, just going in and out all the time.
It's all right. We've got power.
Oh, we've got power. Right. But obviously when you find out that you've passed it on, what do? Do you just put your head in the sand like an ostrich or what? But we had a good GP or what do you call them in America? GP, yeah. Who said, well, there's nothing you can do. You've no control over the past. The only thing you control is the future. Which the damage was done, and so those few words helped us a lot. What else can I say?
Well, we read this with the PowerPoint now, Jim.
Really? Oh, that's excellent. Oh, right. So this time, this slide, the presentation that we usually do, ironically, is what we've used many times. We get invited to do talks at nurses. This is another astonishing thing. We have the utmost respect for nurses. The nurses in, well, the UK, and I'm sure they're just as talented over here. In the 30 years I've been going, are just superb. The attention that they show. But we've been invited to do a couple of talks at nurses' conventions where there's been over 100 nurses each time. And at the start of this talk, which explains about all the emotions and the effects of the syndrome, I often ask, well, how many of you nurses have heard of Gawley syndrome or nevoid basal cell carcinoma or BCCNS or whatever? And the most ever has been 5 out of 100. There's always been over 100 each time. And that was what we wanted to pull over, because obviously a nurse sees the patient far more than the consultant does. And to try and make the nurse understand, it's not only the patient. An average patient, you get a visitor who doesn't know anything about it, but you get families coming who more often than not, there's somebody else in the family who's affected. So they're coming to meet the family, and it's the whole, really to pass on the information to them for them to understand. I'm not going to say any more because I feel like I'm rabbiting on here, getting lower. So, because of my sight, I'm passing this on to Margaret now. Well, sure. Oh, my apologies. For those of you of a nervous disposition, there is a photograph in the early stages which I do apologise for. I think it came from the rock, what do you call it?
Rocky Horror Show.
No, where we went yesterday.
Retro Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think it will be better in that. I think you might see it in the early stages. So please hang on to your chairs, and I hope you'll be all right with that. Thank you.
I won't go on as much as Jim did. Jim usually does this part of the show, or presentation, but as he's explained, his sight isn't good at the moment because of an infection, etc. So you'll have to put up with me. I'm very pleased to be here, I'd like to say. I think it's an honour and a privilege to be invited across and to meet you all. We've had a wonderful time so far. We've been here. And it's been good meeting you all. If I've not spoken to you yet, and or we've not been introduced, come and find me, because I get dragged away and all sorts of things. But I'd be pleased and happy to speak to any of you. Right. This is, as Jim said, a presentation we did last year, and it's usually done for a nursing conference, but we thought it was probably very apt. It's the story of Gorlins and the way it's affected us. Oh, it's gone off.
It's what?
It's gone off.
Oh.
Sorry about this. Jim had had 1 or 2 rodent ulcers removed. Unfortunately, you can't see the picture of him, and that was the picture he was referring to, a picture from our wedding album. And it was just to give you an idea of the transformation in his looks from that time to now. I'm sorry, at present, that's not there. But things were going on. Jim was kept having to go into hospital for regular treatment for the removal of what we now know were BCCs. He went through various different treatments, surgery, cutting, stitching, etc. Unfortunately, the worst treatment he had to endure was radium and radiotherapy, which has, and I'm sure Jim will agree with me, doctors now agree with us, that was the wrong road to take. And that has accelerated his condition and left him with a lot of the problems he experiences today. We eventually ended up with 3 children, 3 daughters, 2 of whom now are Jane, who's 23, Helen, 22. They're both affected by Gorlin syndrome. They've both had numerous jaw cysts removed. They are both undergoing treatment presently for BCCs. Helen, the younger one, is also, as we speak, she'll be preparing to go into hospital when we go home to have a large, oh, thank you, we're back.
You want to tell us next? Yeah, just tell us next.
Okay, fine. So this is just our family tree from Jim's father, who was affected by the syndrome. Very badly affected, and like Jim, had received radium and radiotherapy treatment for many years, which left him with desperate problems. Married to Jenny, my mother-in-law, who I'll say no more about. And then we come down to Jim's sister Anne, who is not affected. Jim is affected, and there's me at the other end there. And these are our 4 children. Jane and Helen, who, as I say, both suffer from Gorlins, both have jaw cysts, both are undergoing treatment for BCCs. Helen will be going on into hospital early May to have a large ovarian fibroma removed off, well, not removed, but drained on, and that's present on her left ovary at present time. It's probably 12, 18 months ago since she had a 6 centimetre square or round fibroma moved off her right ovary. And our 3rd daughter, Anna, as you see, had a very short life. She was one of the very unlucky Gorlins sufferers, a 1% chance of a child having those sorts of problems, and unfortunately it happened to us. She had a mass of fibromas, cardiac fibromas. And then we come to my baby, as I call him, who's 6'4". You've probably seen him wandering around, and he's not affected. So for me, a little bit about all this is, you know, it's a 50-50, it's auto, Jim? Yeah. 50-50, 75-25 as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't work, the maths doesn't work. Next, please. There he is. Rock and roll. Rock and roll. That's a wedding picture, bud. You can see the change in hairstyles. The 21st of July, 1973. Can you press again, please? And the 70s. You can tell by probably the kipper tie and the large collar. If you can keep just pressing now. And that was the sort of experiences we were having at that time with treatment. Hospitalisation for the removal of that, what we thought were rodent ulcers. No connection, no name to this condition. And those were, surgery involved local excision, radiotherapy, cryosurgery and skin grafts. All right, what's going on? Our daughters the 2 daughters, sorry, perhaps if you just go to the next one and then I'll, this was happening to Jim. He was having similar problems to his father, and as far as we knew, these problems were due to his time in the desert rats in Africa during the Second World War when he served in the British Army. And he actually had a bomb blow up and damaged his face. We understood at the time it was, well, I wasn't around then, but we understood from that time that it was shrapnel and rodent ulcers caused by the sun that were coming to the surface and creating lots of problems for him. You know, and Jim started to show the same signs. Hold on, Jim wasn't in the Second World War, he's too young. What's going on? You know, similar problems. Why does a 5.5-month-old daughter die of a very rare form of cancer? And it wasn't until after Anna died that we started to get some answers. But you can go on to the next one now, please. Yeah, it wasn't until after Anna died, I then had Richard 2 years later, but, you know, Jim's problems were continuing. The post-mortem results on Anna, we became involved with a consultant geneticist who, for the first time in the mid-80s, informed us that our 3 girls and Jim were suffering from Gorlin syndrome. You know the response? Gorlin what? So we've, since that time, had regular annual screening with this guy in Manchester, who we've a lot to thank for, Gareth Evans. And, well, there are two actually, Gareth Evans and Professor Farndon, who is heading up the research in the UK in Birmingham, in the Midlands. Next one, please. And on to the 90s, treatments were beginning to change. Jim then underwent laser vaporization, which is the laser treatment. You're probably aware of that. Skin grafts, photodynamic therapy, radial forearm flaps, Integra, which was the artificial skin. I'll let Jim say a little bit more about that later. But importantly for us, radiotherapy was no longer used for this condition. And for us, that was a big leap forward and a way we could educate our children, members of the group in England. Whoa, radiotherapy, if you can, avoid it. Sometimes it's necessary. If you've got a child with a tumour on the brain, they need to have it. But for the treatment of BCCs, we are now informed that it should no longer be used. It has the same effect as one of the doctors this morning was saying. It can damage the DNA, and it's something that should be avoided. All right. What we now know is, through all this research that's been going on, that yes, it's an inherited condition. It's called nevoid basal cell carcinoma, as you all know from the group. It's autosomal dominant genetic condition, meaning it's a 50-50 condition. There's a 1 in 2 risk of a child inheriting that disorder. The gene location, chromosome 9, you'll all know that. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm sure you all know that, but that's where the mutation occurs. And in the northwest of England-based study, a minimum prevalence of 1 in 55,600. That's the occurrence rate. Thank you. Main characteristics, again, I'm not going to dwell. BCCs, jaw cysts, and small pits on the hands, of the palms and the feet. Right? The complication rates, and this is on the Northwest study in England, is that the basal carcinomas at 20 years, there's a 73% rate of inheriting it, or, showing signs of BCCs. And at 40 years, that percentage really does jump up. All right. Jaw cysts, I don't know why that 60%'s there, but at 20 years we have an 82 chance of having had a jaw cyst, and at 40 years it actually increases. But that doesn't occur in all cases. Jim's never had a jaw cyst. And the eye anomaly, at 26%. They talk about nystagmus and cataracts and glaucoma. And the ovarian fibromas I talked of earlier. Thank you. And then we come down to the lesser, not lesser in terms of medical treatment, but lesser in terms of, people actually having these conditions. Cleft lip or palate, I always struggle with that one. Cardiac fibromas, I actually said 1%, it's actually 2.5%. Hodgkin's disease, bronchogenic cysts, and so on. And the diagnostic criteria for Gorling's patients is a diagnosis is made when any of those major criteria are present, or 1 major and 2 minor. And the major criteria are multiple, so over 2 BCCs. The geneticist in the middle, who's central to medicine and medical treatment in the UK for conditions like this. So So you've got the genetic counsellor if need be, the radiographer, the plastic surgeon, the oral surgeon, the gynecologist, general practitioner, dentist, cosmetic camouflage, us, dermatologist, ophthalmologist. How do you get through that lot? And all of these people, as you probably know, with the jaundice, I had 2 daughters diagnosed with jaundice at the age of 8 and 9, same time. First screening, both had multiple jaundice. Hospital beds next to each other on the same ward. Jim, in another town, in another...
Your time while you're eating breakfast and get things rolling here. First, I'd like to start by welcoming you to the first annual BCCNS Life Support Network member retreat. To thank all of you for coming here. I know you've had very difficult journeys. We've got people who've traveled great distances to be with us here today, and I'd like to thank all of you for effort in getting here today. And I'd also like to start by saying something I thought I'd never hear myself say, and that's welcome to Cleveland. Boom. I'm sorry. I know really Cleveland has been the blunt of a lot of local humor. I know we have international travelers here, and Cleveland really is a great town. I've become very affectionate toward it. Been here a few times in the past year and a half or so since I met Christy. It really has been the blunt of some humor, but they're doing a great job. You know, a lot of guys have been to the Rock Hall, and the kids are going, I think, today to the Science Museum, so I'm sure you'll have a great time. We really have, unfortunately, been the blunt of humor. In fact, Russian comedian Yakov Smirnov now having a place in Branson, Missouri, so that every country has a town they make fun of. He said, in fact, in Russia, it's Cleveland. So, we've got a lot of information to get for you here today. I'd like to start by introducing myself. For those of you who don't know, my name is Bud Caruso, and I'm a trustee with the BCCNS Life Support Network. And I'm just going to take just the first few minutes of your day here to give you kind of a rundown of what we're going to do here this morning. And, of course, I walked off without my agenda. Brian, can I borrow your notebook there for just a moment? All of you were given an agenda today. We're going to start off, we have breakfast in this room here, and then we're going to go next door and start off with the speakers. And we'll have formal introductions for everybody, but I just wanted to give you a brief rundown of what we're going to have so you know what to expect. We're going to have breaks for you. I know everybody's interested in that. We're not going to have you go all morning and not have a break, so rest assured we will give you breaks. Starting out this morning, we're going to start off initially with Dr. David Bickers as our moderator for our also esteemed guest, Dr. Irvin Epstein. And from California this morning, he had a rough travel last night with some of our other California members who came in late. As well as then later in the day, we're going to have Dr. Brian Windle, a plastic surgeon, a break onto cancer chemo prevention with Dr. David Bickers. Later in the day, PDT or photodynamic therapy with Dr. Alan Osseroff. A lunch break, so we're going to feed you again. Lots of eating you'll see on the schedule. We're really into food here. And then we're going to break into different groups. So this afternoon we'll have breakout sessions so you can get a little more detailed information. If we hit on a topic that you're really interested in, you want to get some more detailed information, you'll have the opportunity to get that kind of a little more on a personal level there. So you've got a breakdown of what we're going to do. Everybody, if you haven't registered yet, get your coffee, get your breakfast. We'll register you on the way in the room. You will get one of these manuals if you haven't got one already. So you've got something to refer to, something to take notes in. I'd like to, and Chris is going to formally introduce our staff in just a minute here. I'd like to thank Dave and his mom for all the hard work putting all this together. Of my trying to collect information for my own needs. doing research on the internet, libraries, wherever I could get it from my doctor, trying to compile as much information on the syndrome as I could. And I found there was information out there, but it was very sporadic. You find an article here, or a paragraph here, or a paragraph there. So I wanted to create a manner in which people can get information. So as I started getting contacts from people requesting information, I'm mailing it out to them, and I found a much easier way of getting it was to create a website that I could direct them to retrieve that information from the website. Many of you have seen the website and been there, visited our patient forum and different aspects of it. So in creating that website, had a few people contact me right off who were also out there looking for information. And I knew that there must be others, that I couldn't be the only one. I was always told there were other people with this syndrome, and that, how rare it was, likelihood of meeting somebody wasn't that great. I had never met anybody who had the syndrome. I talked to a few on the phone here and there. I knew they were out there. I was a member of another group that existed previously, got a newsletter, so I knew that there were some people out there. I'd met one gentleman through some different treatments, and never, because it was PDT, we both wore masks at the time. So I never had an opportunity to see his face and have a one-on-one conversation. I'm drifting from my notes here. That'll happen. So I had a gentleman, one of my first gentlemen who found the internet site was a great guy named Ren Bradley. And Ren was very informed on the syndrome, and he also knew of a few other people who were interested in the information. So I talked to him a little bit, and he said, you know what? There's a lady out in Ohio who's also thinking about starting a group. In fact, she's been working on it for some time, and I think you ought to contact her and find out a little bit about what she's doing. And then he was also kind enough to hook me up with a young lady from Wisconsin named Jennifer Workmeister. And Jenny and I have become really good friends. In fact, she's my sister sitting over here. We're going to introduce, we're going to pick on Jenny throughout the day, so she's not near off with it yet. And then especially he told me about, there's a man in England who's been running a group, Bud, for 8 years now, and that he could probably be a great help to you in finding out, a little bit, getting you the ball rolling. We talked to Jim, and Jim Costello from the Gorland Group UK, who's traveled all the way over here to join with us today. And Jim has been a tremendous help. And again, I'm just touching the surface. We're going to pick on Jim throughout the day again here as well. But Jim has been a tremendous help in starting our group and helping, referring people over to us. Many of you know Jim, but he's done such a great job of it. We figured, why reinvent the wheel? So we had a perfect model to work after and design our organization after, and working with Jim and having our liaison. Jim is also glutton for punishment, and he's very busy with his own group. We attended his meeting in November. Jim agreed cordially to become our liaison. So he is our international liaison for our group as well. And so I met these people, and I thought, boy, this lady in Ohio is starting a group. I'm interested to talk to her, and well, with confidentiality, we just don't give out people's information. So Ren assured me that he'd contact this lady in Ohio and would have her call me. I thought, well, great, let's go. Well, about 3 weeks went by, and I kind of even forgot about it. One Sunday evening, my phone rang, and I picked it up, and here's a very excited voice on the other end of the phone. And this is Christy Schmidt-Berg. This is Bud Caruso. Yes, it is. I'm going to call you back in just a few minutes. I want to let you know I'm on your website now. I love the photos. I looked at the pictures. The links are great. I'm going to call you right back. I just want to let you know I'm on here looking at it. And she looked, and she called me back in about 10 minutes. And we talked for a little bit that evening, and it didn't take me very long at all to realize that this was a person that I needed to make an affiliation with. It had come to a point in that helping people, it had come to a point already that I was almost overwhelmed with the amount of contact that I had gotten. I had created something, they say be careful what you want, you just might get it. And I had created something that was becoming very consuming. And I'm not formally trained in this. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a number of things. I'm one man. I'm a real estate broker by trade. I have a family. And so I also have limited time. So I'm smart enough to know that there's only a number of things that I can do. And the more I got into it, the more I realized needed to be done. I'm going to pick on Christy tremendously at the end here. I'm by far not done with her yet. But so we talked for a little bit, and we decided, yes, this is definitely something we need to make a merger. We need to combine our efforts, get the ball rolling. We share a common cause. We were like-minded people, and we need to get the ball rolling, and that we're going to do this as soon as possible. Well, about 6 months later, I'm way off my notes here, but that's okay. I'm sure I'll find her. Well, about 6 months later, we ended up getting together finally. I'm very busy with my business, and Christy runs, I think, I think 75 businesses right now Christy's running, but she runs quite a few. So as soon as we can do it, I got to call you, let's just do this. Take your schedule, just stop, let's get together. So Jennifer came from Wisconsin, I came up from Chicago, and we all got together out here in Cleveland, and we met, and for the first time in my life, I had the opportunity to sit down at a table down here at the flats by the river, and we sat down with Christy and Christy's son Hans, and Jennifer and myself, and we sat down, 4 of us at a table as Gorlin patients, and we had the opportunity to say, we're coming out here to make all these plans for the group. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, the whole first weekend actually got consumed with our sharing and caring and developing friendships, and we actually didn't get a whole lot of planning done in that first weekend, but you know what, we accomplished a lot. And that had to kind of get out of the way at some time. And so that was a great weekend for me. I don't know if it was for these people as well, but I believe that it was. And we had the opportunity to share during that time. We got together and decided at that time, it was actually that weekend, we decided that we would travel to Manchester. We had knowledge of Jim's meeting and coming up in Manchester. We decided that weekend that we would travel to Manchester and attend Jim's meeting, that we would have to do this. It would be crucial to the development of our group. We wanted to meet the members. We wanted to see what was going on. We wanted to become informed. They had great information there on different treatments. Everything's done a little bit differently, different methods of medicine, and we had the opportunity to meet with Gorlin patients from all over the world. And although I was aware of most of the manifestations of the syndrome, I hadn't actually seen firsthand. I hadn't met a person who had this feature or that feature. So as I got new families and they called me and said, Bud, have you ever seen this? I had to say, no, I haven't seen that. Well, after traveling to the meeting in Manchester, I had seen most of them. I'd seen it on the internet, but I'd never seen it in person. Well, October 13th of this year, if you guys have your day planners on you, mark your calendars, October 13th of this year, if you can make it at all, if you have to stow away in luggage on a boat, I would highly recommend attending. They just announced the date for Jim, the Gorlin Group UK. Next meeting is going to be October 13th. And what town, Margaret? Help me out.
October the 13th.
And what town is it?
You won't know the town.
Won't know halfway between Manchester and Preston, England, somewhere around there. We'll get you the town, but I would strongly encourage you, all of you, to attend the meeting that have the opportunity to do so. A great event. Their meeting started out, this is our first meeting here today, their meeting started out, I believe, 9 years ago or 8 years ago. The first meeting had 8 people there with it, and then 5 people there with it. So they grew a little bit. Last year's meeting had over 125 people there. So it's growing rapidly. So we came from that meeting. We came back so fired up from that meeting, we decided, you know what? We have to do this for our members. We have to get our people together and start getting them to be more than screen names on the internet. We have a lot of goals we want to accomplish as a group. We're going to share those goals with you later on, probably more toward the closing of the meeting. But it was such a great thing, and we came back so fired up, we decided we have to do it. Well, having so much experience of this, we knew exactly what needed to be done. So we decided at the end of November that we needed to get it done. We could do this in April. So what normally would take a year to plan, we've done this in a little bit under 5 months and put a tremendous deal of stress on the staff there as well. So put this together in just a short period of time. I hope that we'll do a good job for you. And that's basically, we ended up in Cleveland here because of our medical advisory board. Dr. Lynch is here, Christy is here, our office in Burton is here. So of all the places we could have had our first meeting, that's how we ended up being here in Cleveland. So we're looking at other locations for the future, but right now this was our prime facility for it. I'd like to take just a few more minutes before I wrap up and thank a couple of people and honored guests, and I'm going to turn it over. We have some distinguished guests here with us, and I'd like to thank a few people. We have a very dear friend with us here today, and without this person's help, none of this would have been possible here today. Gentleman has been a dear friend to our group. Not only was he our first financial contributor to the group, another glutton for punishment, he's also our legal counsel. He's taken his time to volunteer to do the corporation for our group. He's helped establish the not-for-profit status. And those are the things that he feels he's probably contributed to the group. I feel a little bit more strongly towards something else. What he's contributed, in my outlook, is his really truly being a friend and a kind person. And he's been very knowledgeable and has had great input for us as well. That's Mr. Bill Ginn. Thanks, Bill. Also like to thank Arlene, if you'll send our thanks to Arlene as well. I appreciate it, Bill's wife, Arlene. And also, just to mention again, I don't know how I could possibly begin to to send thanks to these people. We're very honored to have with us today our primary supporters. As you know, we don't solicit membership funds at this point from our members. We don't charge for a newsletter. We've never solicited funds for a member. We have with us this morning Mr. and Mrs. Wilbur and Eleanor Schmidt, Christy's mother and father. Mr. and Mrs. Schmidt have been extremely generous to our group, and without their generosity, again, none of this could have been possible. None of our organization, none of setting up the office, none of visiting the meeting in Manchester, none of having this meeting here today could have been possible without their extreme generosity. And I'd like to thank you personally. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Schmidt. I appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to pick on that lady from Ohio just a little bit. Give you a little bit of background on Christy before she comes up here. Christy is a dynamo. I mentioned that when I talked to her on the phone, that it didn't take me very long at all to know that this was a lady I need to partner up with. Christy's involvement, many of you know she's a dairy farmer, but I don't know if you know how she got involved in dairy farming. She's involved in land conservation in the area. She's very much interested in saving the land that's available, stopping it from developers and getting all these two-story houses put up. Now, one of the problems is that once you save the land, you have the problem you have to do something with it. And Christy had a background in dairy farming, and that's how the dairy farm started out. Not only is it a dairy farm, when I think of a dairy farm, I think of the little wooden stool and a bucket out there. They have a very high-tech operation, a very scientific operation out there, and it's a training facility. They bring kids from Akron, from Erie, all over, and they bring school kids out there so they can see the facility and give them some history on the dairy farm. She's also involved in a maple products business, also involved in a nutritional supplements business. So she's wearing many hats, and of course, with all of her spare time, she decided she'd also like to start the Life Support Network. So I'd like to welcome and thank Christy for all of her efforts, and welcome Christy Schmidt-Burke.
Wow, is this empowering? I hope you're feeling the just fellowship, the true unity of looking across the room and saying, he could be my brother. She could be my sister. That could be my son. That could be my daughter. We are all linked as a family, not because of geography, not because of nationality, not because of our ethnic beliefs, but because of one very unwanted gene that none of us woke up in the morning and said, gee, I want to be a basal cell carcinoma nevus syndrome patient. None of us ever woke up and said, I want to go and see my dermatologist today and let him cut and hack and chop away. And so when I saw Bud for the first time, I said, you can't choose your family. You can't choose your enemies. But you can choose your friends in Gorlin syndrome. Bud is my genetic brother. Jim Costello is my genetic brother. Jennifer Workmeister is my genetic sister, and I'm so very proud of all of you for making this moment happen. Thank you very much. Now, let's go to just there's some real, what we're doing this morning real quickly, because we're running actually behind schedule already, and the day's just begun. At the end of this, we're going to give everybody a t-shirt that says, I survived the 2001 retreat, because this is a marathon to get a lot of information in. The kids, where did the kids all disappear to?
They're leaving.
I have most of them, I think.
Okay, what are we doing this for? Our children, our grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren that I will maybe never even see. If I'm not doing it for my child, I am doing it for your grandchild. If you are not doing it for yourself, please know that every piece of information you gather over the next couple days will help someone else have a better quality of life. I live with basal cell nevus syndrome. I survive Gorlin syndrome, but it does not have me, and I will not give it my spirit, and I will not give it my soul, and I don't want you giving your spirit or your soul to this disease. So if I can do nothing else but make you feel good about who you are and what we're about to accomplish, then that is my goal and mission in these next couple days. I love these kids. If I can do anything for them, then it's worth it, every minute of it, and I think your time is well spent. If we add up all the miles that all of you have come to attend this, and all the expense of flying and everything, I mean, it's awesome to take and say, do we really want to spend this? I'll tell you what, for the times I've spent in a hallway, laying in the hospital, looking up at pipes, waiting for surgery. You are entitled to this weekend. You are entitled to this time in a quality first-class hotel, and I want you to feel good about the money you're spending to come to do this, about the time you're going to spend. There is nothing more important than learning and empowering you about this disease so you can take control of it and handle it in your family and with your friends. So welcome to our 2001 retreat. And again, we're going to do a little thing here. Every time we said Bud Caruso, I want you to say attaboy, okay? So, Bud Caruso. Attaboy. A little louder. Bud Caruso. Attaboy. All right.
Now, wait, we can't, when we say Christy, then we'll have to come up with something else.
Oh, no.
I just like to add, many of you read Christy's messages in our patient forum. We will wrap up quick. Christy posted in there, welcome BCCNS survivors, and she considers herself a survivor of this syndrome. I don't consider her a survivor. I think just a few minutes of hearing her talk, and I consider Christy to be a thriver, and it certainly is so. So I think a few minutes here, and I think you'll agree with me. So I want to thank Christy again for all of her hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to send the kids off because they are on a little trip this morning to the Science Center where they're going to do lots of interactive things. And we're all going to move to our first speaker room, which is just around the corner. So if you will finish what you're doing, we've got about 5 minutes to get over there. And
3.5 minutes.
yeah.
We need 5 for a small.
3.5. Thank you. I just saw the beautiful women that have that impact on me. There I'm having a personal summer here. Get some breakfast? Get all set up over there? Hmm? They're waving me out in the background like this, like speed it up, speed it up.
Got it all out there.
Yeah, I tried. Actually, I didn't, but I got close enough. Yeah, sure. There's beverages and refreshments in the other room as well. So if you leave your coffee, just eat your pop. We're not leaving you high practice. There's refreshments in the other room too. It's up. You can take them with you. You can get another one in there. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
The fact of the matter is that Irv and I he's one of my very closest friends in medicine. We've known each other for just about 30 years when we were both on the house staff at the New York University School of Medicine in New York City. And Irv is a unique physician scientist in this country. He's one of a very tiny handful of people who have managed to simultaneously maintain a very busy, productive scientific laboratory and simultaneously maintain a very busy, thriving private practice of dermatology in San Francisco. That's a rare accomplishment today, and he's done superbly well at both. I'm going to just give you a couple of highlights. Since you had to hear all that about me, I guess I better give you a few things about Dr. Epstein so you get a sense of the fullness and richness of the man. He is a graduate of Harvard College and received his MD degree from the University of California in San Francisco and subsequently spent he was an intern at Barnes Hospital at Washington University in St. Louis, and then a resident in dermatology back at Harvard. And then he went to the NIH. In the days of the Vietnam War, there were alternative methods for serving your country, and he went to Bethesda, where he began a lifelong career in dermatologic research. And he currently is at the University of California, San Francisco, where he has a research laboratory that has, for the last several years, been focused on the genetic basis of human diseases. And as you certainly know, It is his work that led to the discovery of the specific genetic abnormality that is associated with the nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome, namely the mutations in the patch gene. And this seminal work has opened an entirely new avenue of research, not only in the disease that we're talking about here today, but in understanding more about the very basic biology of various pathways that are important and are conserved evolutionarily all the way back to flies and worms and mice and man. Irv is going to talk about the basal cell carcinoma, nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome, and it's a great pleasure to introduce my good friend and colleague, Dr. Irvin Epstein.
Thank you very much. I think David's comment about humility on our part is the most appropriate response as we go on sharing. One thing about which I'm really not humble, though, is the pride I take in the feeling that I personally am completely responsible for that career that you heard about in the introduction to Dr. Vickers. When I was a third-year resident here at the university, I spent time in Bethesda serving my country, as he said. The professor brought around this very young person to see what kind of research I was doing, maybe teach him a little bit. And subsequently, he has told me, that young person being Professor Vickers, that the reason he went into research is he looked at me and said, if he can do it, oh yeah, that'd be fine, because I... Now, I will say I've had the opportunity to tell this story in lots of places to scientific groups, and I don't remember trying to do it for a non-scientific group. So I may stumble more than usual, and I would like this to be as interactive as possible, because my guess is that the background that you all bring here is quite variable. And so I hope not to be saying things that are pretty obvious or to go over anybody's head. In a family, in friends, people are willing to ask questions and say they don't know something. So I hope here in this family that is very private, nobody else is seeing, and only stays within the confines of this room, that we can really be as interactive as possible. And please, if there's something I've said that makes no sense, don't hesitate to interrupt, because I've heard this before. It's not for me, I hope. And as I said before, I ask questions of the people in back, so there's lots of room to bring chairs up closer if anybody would like. Can you see that better or this better in the back? Green, okay. I think the Greens have it, which is good for what I heard about Christie's interest in land conservation. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit here at the board. I do have some slides also, which we may or may not get to depending upon the time. As you've heard, I am a practicing dermatologist. Half a day every day I see patients, whoever walks in. I've done this for 28 years. My father started the practice in 1937. During that time, we've diagnosed in total together one patient with basal cell nevus syndrome out of about 75,000 different people who've come by. So indeed, at least in their ability to diagnose it, it's not common, as you well know. So really the luck of the draw here. And the other half time during the past, especially 15 years, my lab has focused on trying to identify genes whose mutations underlie some inherited skin disorders. And I'd start just by mentioning about skin cancers, and I know some of this is going to be discussed later, that fundamentally one reads in the press about two different kinds of skin cancers. One is melanoma, and one kind is the non-melanoma skin cancers. And these generally come in two varieties. One, the squamous cell carcinoma, and one basal cell carcinoma. And the reason I sort of make that distinction is that bad as this is worse because these tend to metastasize, to break off from the place where they start, go elsewhere, and have very deleterious consequences to the health of the patient. So when you pass the American Academy of Dermatology notes in the airport that say, this guy's crazy to go out without his hat. All of us are crazy to go out without our hats. But what they're really trying to prevent is melanoma, which metastasizes. Unfortunately, this is problematic enough just to grow locally. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that we're not really talking at all about melanoma. And the specifics of this syndrome are such that there is absolutely no increased incidence of melanoma or squamous cell carcinoma in people who have basal cell nevus syndrome. So that's probably something you already knew, but I wanted to make sure we emphasize that. Now, if you make a microscopic picture of the skin, cut it this way and look at it from the side, we have the epidermis here with cells that are on the base of it. And cells ordinarily divide here, move up here, and over about 2 weeks are present in transit, and then become bags full of protein, which really are what allow us to live on dry land and not desiccate, not dry out. Without the epidermis forming this watertight barrier, which you don't see and which is continuously renewed and goes down the shower drain or collects under a cast if you break your arm. Without that, we'd have to go back to living in the ocean. So that's really the purpose of what's going on. And down here is the dermis, which has lots of cells and hair follicles that produce hair, oil glands and sweat glands that produce sweat, and some other stuff, but mostly is the 2x4s and is the great bulk of the skin that you feel. Squamous cell carcinomas look like cells from here. Basal cell carcinomas look like cells from here. And in among this population of cells are another group of cells which produce the pigment, and those are melanocytes. The pigment is called melanocytes, and it's those cancers, when they turn cancers, that cause melanoma. So it's a different population of cells within the epidermis that's responsible, basal cells, because they resemble the cells of the basal layer, the lower layer. Whether they actually come from that site, these tumors or not, is unclear. There's certainly some evidence that instead they come from the hair follicles themselves. So whether they arise from between the hair follicles or the hair follicles themselves is uncertain. Nobody
So I've gone out of the room now.
Are you relieved?
I'm relieved he's getting checked over, yes. But he did make out he was all right, but he does figure, I mean, he's on a good day today. He's definitely on a good day. But, you know, he's very changeable, bless him. I mean, he doesn't realise, you know, but he is very changeable.
You were very worried about him not accepting the doctor, but he seems to have.
Yeah, I joked a bit with him, and I said that, you know, you were coming along to do the documentary, so he was, you know, I just joked a little bit with him, and he was all right then. He just came up, and I said, oh, in half an hour we'll go out for lunch, you know, we're going over to the hospital, have a bit of lunch, and then we'll go and see my stepmum, so he's all right about it now. It's a way to handle him. But, you know, sometimes, you know, you won't have any of it. But today's a good day, so.
Pleased to say there are no abnormal physical signs there. Obviously one has to be very careful not ascribing things to tension and nerves, and one does worry about, you know, some condition with his colon, but I'm pleased to say the physical examination and rectal examination are normal. He did have quite a lot of antibiotics that might have killed off bacteria, good bacteria that are normally in the colon, and that's brought back this old tendency from years ago to diarrhea, and I would suggest he has a bulking agent, some fibogel, if he can remember to take it. But I think because of his other symptoms of just feeling a bit weary, I think I'm going to get my nurse to come up and just check his urine and blood as well, just to make sure that there's nothing there. But certainly he hasn't got any of the cardinal signs like blood or slime or, you know, a lump or bump on the examination that makes me feel, well, he needs you know, an urgent x-ray or something like that. I think we can afford to just, you know, see if this settles down a little bit. He is saying now that he would go to rafters and have some food, so I hope perhaps, you know, enjoying it with you, he might find that he's able to have it.
Yeah.
The nurse will contact him. He doesn't need to be under a lot of stress about shall I go out or whatever. She'll give him a ring about coming, you know, fit in with him. Yes.
I'm just putting the hot water bottle in the fridge to help.
The kettle's just boiled, Dad, so you can use that.
Eh?
The kettle's just boiled, so you can use that. Because I was going to make a cup of tea, but we're going out soon, so.
Would you like me to get this delivered for him, or would you like to? Now I have his permission. Obviously, the whole situation has changed. I thought that he would probably, you know, sort of resist a lot more. But I think, you know, he's worked around sensibly.
Well, the thing is that I own this place, you see.
Sure.
It cost me £20,000 10 years ago with a...
Only worth that now.
Well, no, it won't. Well, I don't know, value's gone. Money buys more now, doesn't it? Or the price would have dropped, but you know what I mean.
Well, I will help to sort it out with your social worker. At the end of the day, no amount of money, you know, is worth you slipping on the frost.
Oh, no. But I mean, I don't want the idea of going to the dirt or anything like that, you know.
Very easily.
I can always live here until you sell it, can't
I see.
I can do it up for you and clear stuff for you. And sort the stuff out without Nan, because she won't want everything chucked out, will she? You know what she's like. She won't have a look at everything.
Oh, that's the wife, aren't Nan?
Yes. I think, you know, medically speaking, you've reached the right decision, and I think that
I'm not
it's up
bad
to
for my
me
age,
to
am I?
help
Not
you.
really.
No, you're not.
No,
And
you're not really.
No, you're not. And I don't think that you are suffering, from a dementia.
Oh no, non-compos mentis.
I think you've just got the forgetfulness,
Yeah,
that's part of the
yeah.
course in old age.
Yeah, I
and
forget things.
You will do. And I think if you can expand your shopping list strategies, that's the way to do it. Anything that you've got to remember, just jot it down and try and
Of course, I
tick
don't
it
do
off.
much now. Now Nan's in there, see.
So I've always said to him, have Meals on Wheels, but he won't.
I know.
I know.
Won't have that. I mean, my stepmom had it, and she said they're lovely meals. And at least then you haven't got no washing up. You don't have to go out and get the food.
Oh, well, if I don't do that, I'm not going to do anything, am I? It keeps me
Would you
still
occupied.
like
get
to
your
perhaps
stuff in
try
the
it
evening.
again on Sundays of the week?
No, I'd sooner do it myself and keep myself going,
See, Mr. Independent.
Yes.
Well, I can do it. When I can't do it, then it's time to start. Things
Sure.
like that.
Sure. Right. Well,
But I'll tell you what, Doctor, sometimes last week I was very, very depressed.
Mm.
I think if I'd have had a bottle of pills by the side of bed, I think I'd have taken them. And
Yes.
I've never felt like that in my
Yes.
life. I've always been a bit of a struggler, fighter,
Very down, were you?
I was ever then got Nan being away and I had diarrhea and sickness and
Yes. Did it make you feel weepy?
not, depressed.
What's the point of it all? What about?
Well,
that
I was
how you
just sick.
felt?
That was how
No,
I
is that how
felt.
you
I was sick
felt?
of life as it was. She was in there and I was on my own and there nobody came to see us or anything, see?
Yes.
I popped in every day.
Yeah, but I mean, you know
He
what I
wouldn't
mean?
even
in the
let me
daytime,
make him a
I
cup
was
of
sitting
tea,
in-
so I knew something was wrong.
I mean, you're sitting in I've always been an early riser from my army
And do you
days.
feel those feelings have lifted, or do you think they're still
Oh,
there
I'm a
in
lot
the
better.
background?
Definitely a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I never took the car out, did I? I never went out and got meat and something. I'm all right.
I mean, last week you wouldn't have seen you, would you?
Yeah.
You were really down.
Yeah.
You
I'm
didn't
all right
want to
now.
see anyone.
Sure. So you don't feel you want to take some sort of antidepressant
Oh, no,
type of
no,
medication?
no. I'm fine.
I mean, there are ones that don't affect you too much from the point of view of doping you up.
Yeah, I don't want to.
But those are the very ones that would probably or possibly upset your tummy and make your diarrhea
can't have
worse. I would think that was probably reacting
I've
to...
got a bit of a tummy ache now. Are you pressing it?
I'm sorry. Yes. I think you're probably reacting to
I
situation.
get a lot of wind as well.
You certainly haven't come over to me as being, sort of low in that way.
Oh, no.
I mean, you have a problem,
Oh, yeah,
but we all have problems, but you've come over,
I think I'm
with
quite
a
fit for my
variety.
age for 79, I guess.
Yes.
Except for my old knee and my hip, of course. And that's going to get wet. I
mean,
wouldn't want to go in again and have it done again.
I mean, would you say that his mood is now,
Not better.